Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Duval Dive. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game.
And I'm Travis Holmes with BigCatCountry.com.
And you're listening to this thing on the Believe Podcast Network. Travis, I got to tell you, listen, you and I are family men. I don't think that's a secret. But how excited the Duval Devout must be to see that the Jags were able to keep the family together. Look at this, folks. I got to tell you this up front. And forget about the Cleveland Browns, who have their own family issues. Goodness gracious. Holy gosh. I don't even know what to do with that. But up to this point, and I was on other shows, Travis, that you may or may not have seen, with Mark Moses' show, shouts to Mark Moses, as well as the Earnestly Speaking podcast, where I said, until we know the outcome of the Buffalo Bills opening, we don't know what's going to happen with Grant Udinski. I think he comes back. We're getting pretty secure news about that. And, of course, Coach Campanelli appears to be doing the same. Travis seems convinced, if you saw the thumbnail that he very expertly built, stating we back. I'm going to go ahead and put the eye candy out here, the Jags PR tweet. Jacksonville Jaguars have announced offensive coordinator Grant Udinski and defensive coordinator Anthony Campanelli will remain with the team for the 2026 season. That's right, folks. The Arizona Cardinals were not able to draw. We're not able to draw Campanelli away, and the excitement builds, and rightly so, in my opinion. Travis, let me get your opinion as a card-carrying member of the Duval Devout.
I mean, it's been good, and it's a great situation for Jacksonville. It's like the best situation you could probably have for if you're a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, and if you're someone even in the Jacksonville Jaguars front office, because obviously I don't think very many people would have even expected these guys to like legitimately be front runners, like legitimately be finalists in this coaching cycle after the first season. Just going into this thing, you probably thought, if you're Liam Cohen, just putting yourself in his shoes, I'm going to have 2 years at least before losing someone. And I've been clear about this, saying this from day one, that I did not think that they were necessarily going to lose one of these guys throughout the process. And I won't lie to you guys. At one point, I was like, I might have to change my tune on this a little bit. I'm just being real about that.
About Campanelli during the year, even if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was to a point where I was like, I've never seen an example outside of maybe the Baltimore Ravens, maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then something that I never thought was going to happen happens, where the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers are both looking for coaches, and I'm like, oh crap, that's
a great point. What a wild year in the coaching market in general. What was it? 10 teams available? That's not a thing. On average, it's 6. Right? And then the dudes that moved.
10 teams. And then 2 of those teams are teams that you have seen in getting a guy with like 1 year of experience actually calling plays on defense, Mike Tomlin or something like that. And then you're like, well, maybe. I don't know if he gets the right call with the right team. This might not be a good situation for Duval. And fortunately, it worked out. Like, I'll just be clear. And then everybody's been asking all the questions. Hey, what's happening with the front office? What's happening with the extensions, with all of this stuff? And I'm like, dude, they're obviously focusing on the staff first. Like, they're still very clear. They want to figure out what's going to happen with the staff. Is Campanelli still going to be in the building? What's happening with Grant? What's happening with run game coordinator, pass game coordinator, all these roles? Get the coaches in the building and then kind of hammer out those details of who they want to be there and how to make the numbers work and all of that. So we've had the extension. Like, now we can start having these extension conversations, restructure conversations, cap draft stuff, all of this, now that we can officially say who's going to be in the building, basically.
Before we get into all of that breakdown, and we folks, we read your grab bag, we read your mailbag and all the things you sent in. There's a couple comments here I want to address. John G in the comments, we running it back, party at the Pineapple. I have no idea what that means, and I don't want to find out. But here's what I responded, and I'm gonna say it was me of the pair of us at the Duval Dive. That running it back feels way different than hearing that when it was under Dougie P after the loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, your level of excitement is completely different compared to when they were deciding to run it back after that.
Right. But at one level, when you're running it back with the old Jaguars, you felt like you were running it back while holding on, if that makes sense. Like, you felt like you were trying to get something back that you had lost. In this situation, this is running it back but you believe that this is going to be different than it was. Like we haven't even gotten into the meat and potatoes conversations, talking about potentially losing guys like a Devin Lloyd, maybe even potentially losing a guy like Travis Etienne, because we will talk about that in different podcasts. Because again, you guys asked, so we will talk about it.
It's coming.
But to say, like, we're not even talking about running it back. We're talking about creating something new and being fans of whatever that looks like this upcoming season. And it may not look like it looked last year.
That's a great point, Travis. How much have we talked about this being a more than 1 year rebuild? Now, granted, Liam Cohen and company took it to the playoffs in a game where we felt like they should have won. We did not have that on the docket. You and I did not, at least. I'll put it that way. You had them making the playoffs potentially. You didn't necessarily have them feeling like they should have won the game in your mind in August. If you did,
won the game, been dominant in the win, been in the Super Bowl. Like all the things that I never thought I would have said in this preseason, that I would have called myself a homer for saying, I can objectively say right now based on the film and not feel like I'm out here smoking some drugs or whatever, doing whatever the vice of your choice, basically.
Yeah, HR did not place that call, but they could have. You're not wrong, Travis. And Ray is echoing your sentiment. Wild to think after 1 year, other teams wanted to pick off our coordinators. And here's the thing, Travis, and I'm going to say this quickly because you did a great job over the weekend with your 10-minute drop, talking about the excitement that should be for Duval and all the coaching staff and the genius of finding these coaches. However, I would check one thing as the non-fan in the room. You do realize Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn were already off the market, right? Like Liam Cohen was the de facto next best thing. And Tony Pacelli he said, hey, Shad, before you bleep this one up too, get Balky the bleep out of here. Again,
he didn't get interviewed by anybody else. And that's still the point. Grant Udinski got interviewed by more people than Liam Cohen. Think that through. And Liam Cohen actually had a resume of plays called at both in college and in the NFL. True. Like now, the word is out now. The word is out on this Sean McVay tree, and that teams are going to have to be a little bit extra aggressive. And that's why you see guys like Grant get those interviews that they're getting now, despite not having to call plays. It's because now everyone else kind of knows, because the Jaguars did it a year in advance and it worked out beautifully. And that's kind of the point. And can we just talk about the dichotomy of how Jacksonville chose to handle this Udinski situation also? Because people aren't talking about that either, right? Like he was possibly going to be able to take the Buffalo Bills job. Like we know that didn't work out, but you compare that to how Tampa Bay handled Liam Cohen. Like Liam called plays in Tampa Bay, so that does change the math just a little bit, right? But overall, remember the Bucs, they blocked multiple interviews for Jacksonville, looking to hire guys like his position coaches that Cohen had previously worked with, and they gave Cohen a contract to be a top-paid offensive coordinator, but told him he couldn't take another head coaching interview. Meanwhile, Jacksonville on the other side of that coin, now Liam, been in that situation personally, allowed Udinski to say, I'm going to come back as an offensive coordinator, but also still be able to take this Buffalo Bills interview. And if you get it, that's the only way that I'm not coming back. And they were okay with it. They were basically saying, hey, man, we support you moving up. Take the interviews. And if you Grant Udinski, that's got to be a huge reminder of like, this is where I'm coming from. And this is kind of a situation I'm looking to go to. Like, you got to think that that's some kind of a small reminder. Does not just choose money just to land somewhere you don't belong, right?
No, and I love that too. I'm not saying everything you said isn't correct, because it is, but I think that says just as much about the Jags and Liam Cohen and that culture as it does about the situation that the Bucs were stuck in. I say stuck in. No, F it. I'm going to stay with that. Stuck in.
Still stuck in it.
Exactly. With Todd Bowles as a non-play caller and a non-offensive coach. They were at the whim of Liam Cohen because he was the dude that made the parts move. And the Jags and Shad Khan particularly recognized that. Perhaps there was some fly-by-night things that took place regarding alleged doctor's appointments and not. I'm not going to touch that. But I am going to tell you that I still maintain that Littlefinger was let loose there, even though it wasn't the North, and sacrificed. I know it's unofficial, but I said what I said, Duval Divers. And let me throw this at you, too, because I am curious your response to this from John G in the comments. I wonder how much the success this year increased the heat on other coaches, meaning beyond coordinators. I think there are some coaches that got fired after what happened with the Jags. Otherwise, who otherwise would not have.
Well, yeah. I mean, because these billionaires, as much as folks think billionaires are these really intelligent people, I'm not throwing shade. I'm just telling you, I don't know multiple billionaires. That's not factual. I know multiple millionaires though. I know multiple. I know very. I mean, again, you guys know my uncle was an agent. Like I know multiple NFL players. That I talk to these guys. I'm not trying to. That's not me like raving about who I know. It's not a humble brag or anything like that. It's simply to say I'm talking about people that I personally know, and I'm telling you, being a millionaire and being a billionaire does not make you intelligent. It can often mean that you're just smart enough to know where to get the answers, and you're smart enough to know when to follow trends. And it can be as simple as that. And sometimes they're dense enough to not do that what seems to be blatant. So I'm saying that in this situation to say, hey man, no, when I said the word is out, that's what I meant. Like it's hard to say objectively that this is not going to work with this Matt LaFleur, Kevin O'Connell, Liam Cohen, all those guys from that Sean McVay tree, because every offensive guy you put out there, it looks very much like this going to be successful. Like the defensive guys can be hit and miss generally from that McVay tree, but it seems very clear to me right now, like, hey, this is going to be good. And if you don't mind, can I just get to that Buffalo Bills fans?
Real quick before you do, because we're going to get there. Yeah. The last comment I want to put in that speaks to your point, I think, very well. Chris Jags fan in the comments. Well, did Ben Johnson lose any of his stuff? No! Drop the mic, Chris. What a point by you. Okay, we can go ahead. We can get back.
Oh, good question. I don't really even pay attention to the Bears to know if they lost any coaching staff losses.
I sure haven't seen the headlines. I know that.
But then again, all right, as much as we want to feel good about all of this, but the Bears lost they lost one assistant coach from the staff, I guess. So they did lose one person. That doesn't seem like anything of significance, but nevertheless, they did lose one. And the Jaguars lost two? Well, they were finalists for interviews in two, but they didn't lose them. So I want to be clear about this.
But the one that the Jags did lose, were they head coaching candidates? That's my question.
Oh well, of course not, man. But they weren't finalists. I just want to be clear. At the end of the day, it didn't happen. So we're waving our flags in the streets because something almost happened. Come on, man. I ain't trying to be that. But
speaking of things that almost happened, right? Like I think that's what you're trying to get to. Yeah, here we go. What would have been your thought, Duval Devout, if Greg Udinski had become the Bills head coach? Trevor, despite
the fact that it didn't happen, I thought it was an intriguing conversation because I viewed Udinski similar to the Zach Taylor hire in Chicago, right? Like that was obviously way different because Press Taylor's brother only had the 1 year experience calling plays at Cincinnati in college. Right. And that was a few years before he was hired. So he was a local boy. They knew who he was locally in Cincinnati. And then he also had the experience calling plays for the Miami Dolphins. He was an interim offensive coordinator, right? So he had at least some proof of concept in that way. Whether or not it was a long proof of concept, it was something calling plays. Udinski didn't necessarily have that. And that's why I was saying earlier that the word is out. It's kind of one of those situations where everyone at this point, if you were associated with Sean McVay, if you were his errand boy, if you brought his socks on Sundays, like whatever it was, if you have an association on the offensive side of the ball, folks are going to give you an interview because the proof is in the pudding. Like again, Matt LaFleur, Mike LaFleur, Liam Cohen, Kevin O'Connell, even Zach Taylor. All these guys had that much experience. And again, I use Zach Taylor as the example because he was, at the time he was hired, he was the second youngest coach, head coach in the NFL behind only Sean McVay. So that's literally the blueprint. And all of these other guys are super young, and they allow you to have a young guy who might be your head coach for 20, 30 years. And calling plays on offense, that's the hardest thing to find. So you have to take a chance on those guys, and someone should take a chance on Udinski eventually because that entire tree just bears fruit. It's very clear, bro.
Yeah, and here's the thing in particular that I would also point out, and you could call me throwing shade at Zach Taylor, but the evidence does it, not necessarily me. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I've heard the statement made that the worst coach in the AFC North was the only one who kept his job this past offseason. And it's hard for me to refute that. Now, why am I throwing shade at Zach Taylor? I've talked to the man, granted at distance because it was, still post-pandemic in LA at the Super Bowl, where he would eventually go on to get beaten by the St. Louis Rams and John Matthew Stafford. But in mentioning that, a guy of Zach Taylor's ilk is at least good enough to propel one Joey Burr to the promised land.
He raises the floor. You
got it. Now, I'm not here to say that Grant Udinski requires such a crutch to be a good head coach. But damn it, Josh, having Josh Allen calling plays for the first time doesn't bleeping hurt. That had to have been at least remotely appealing. What I'm going to say here, and I'm pretty sure you agree with me, the press conferences of late after the firing of one Sean McDermott might have helped to convince Grant Udinski to stay right here in Jacksonville. I'm going to throw that out there.
Yeah, that probably don't help. Having crazy owners. Again, you see what Liam Cohen, you see what Sean McVay, you see what Kevin O'Connell, you see what all these guys do with cohesion in the front office and the leadership group. And then you're like, that's not what they have over here in Cleveland. That's not what they have over here in Buffalo. I'm gonna take my ass home. Like that's basically, I'm gonna take my ball and go home. Like that feels like a very easy statement.
And he didn't even take Tennessee's call, right?
Yeah. So I mean, Matt LaFleur, Kevin O'Connell, Liam Cohen, those three guys have a 66% winning record, 132-69-1 as head coaches with 9 playoff appearances in 12 years. So if you're an NFL owner or GM, you've been desperate to have like sustained success, you're gonna have to make that risk. Like you're gonna have to hire that guy early. That's what it's gonna be.
I appreciate you resisting the urge to say pause after mentioning 69 losses. Anyways,
well, and that's also saw on the socials though. Like a lot of people were like questioning whether or not like Udinski was gonna be like ready for the job. Like that's the big part. And I even thought the thoughts myself. I said it a few weeks back because he didn't want to keep on Jim Schwartz in the building in Cleveland. And we saw how that hit the news today with Cleveland hiring Todd Monken, and now it sounds like Schwartz is wanting to get the hell out of Dodge and not wanting to stay there either way. But the rumor at the time was that Udinski wanted to hire Jaguars defensive line coach Matt Edwards. That was the reported name to watch, and I just wanted your thoughts on that. Like, he wanted to hire Matt Edwards over a dominant defensive coordinator as Jim Schwartz. Now, is that a red flag to you, or is that just kind of like, hey, man, I want my guy?
I'm in an odd place because even though he had a very awkward interaction with my guy, Jim Harbaugh, in what was referred to as the shakedown after one of their games where the handshake went awry for whatever reason, I am a guy who appreciates Jim Schwartz as a head coach. Do I think he's enough to dictate a deal? God, no. But, I'm wondering, here's the 4D chess that could be getting played. And of course it's the Browns. Okay. Of course there's no 4D chess. But I think putting Schwartz out there the way that they have, they can hide behind the fact of other franchises out there in the past, such as, I don't know, the Raiders were in that conversation at one point back when, I forget the name of the guy before Lovie Smith in Houston. Levy, I think it was his name, Dave Levy, whatever. The punchline was, we all know that was a 1-year hire, right? Gerard Mayo in New England, all these kinds of guys. You could hide behind Jim Schwartz because I believe the Browns, being tied to Watson, think there's a high likelihood, which no offense to my guys, the Barking Browns, who have named James Gladstone, Jimmy Stones, that we've adopted on the show. I got to give them their credit. But I think there's an element of that to be thought of, right? The one thing I think that the Haslams might be that devoted to over everything else, including the prowess of their team, Travis, is their image. And putting Jim Schwartz in position to take the air quotes blame makes sense from that petty point of view.
Man, that's just a bad owner, bro. I mean, we can play 4D. Yeah, I know you did. We can play 4D chess if you want, but that's just a bad owner, and we know what
Hey, give me a little credit. I went from 4D chess to petty. Like, come on,
Jacksonville Jaguars fan for the last, I don't know, 25, 30 years, whatever it is, since 1995. I'm trying to get my math right. Then you already you know a thing or two because you've seen the thing or two. We are Jaguars fans. Like you know what this is. Like, bro,
make Jags fans farmers.
You know what bad ownership looks like because you've seen it. No, but now so our owner got right, and we are blessed and highly favored to be in that situation. But that was not always the case. And that's what that is in Cleveland right now. So shout out to to Udinski for making that right decision. That was unfortunate for Camp because I don't think he had the situation to that level. But with that's a big point for the future is like with the possibility of losing Camp and Udinski next year, Cohen now is obviously officially on notice, right? Like that they're not only going to need a succession plan for the offensive side of the ball, but for the defense, because they're going to be losing those guys likely if they just have a remotely similar year next year. But also they're going to have the trickle down of effect of losing the other guys below them, because again, if you're talking about maybe losing your defensive line coach to become a defensive coordinator under those guys if they leave, or you may lose other guys on the staff that are underneath that might get promoted to go to one of these squads. So that they now have another year to figure that out. But just know next year's Jacksonville Jaguars coaching roster and maybe the roster in general will not look like it looks right now, and that's part of the game, man.
But hey, let me tell you this. How many times on this show, you and I both, Travis, at different junctures, granted, I think I'm a little bit louder about it because it involves the offensive line, but how many times have you and I both preached 2-year plan? Maybe it's possible Liam Cohen was expecting to lose these guys after 2 years. What about that?
Good. That means that I expect to have success.
You went full Donald Glover. Good. I love how you lean right into that ish, bro. Thank you.
No, that means I expect to have success, and if I have success, then I'm going to expect to lose these guys. So this is my plan, and this is probably why I hired some of the guys that I hired. Like maybe we'll talk about those guys in a second. But you mentioned offensive line.
Well, before we get there, you know what we've done? My dude PJ Brown in the comments asked us, should I get ticks for next season? I think we've answered your question with all this conversation. Have we not, PJ? Especially all the money you won. Shoot, dude, you can already afford the damn tickets. Why you bitch?
Yeah, he's spending other people's money to get season tickets. What are you talking about? You already know the answer.
Thank you. Anyways, Robert mentions the Bengals just need a good GM and owner. Yeah, that's all.
Jesus.
Let me find that under the couch real quick. The Jags, Chris Jags fan says, should be a good year. Last year, I don't think we even had a head coach at this time. You might be right. I don't have the timeline.
We did not. I believe it was like February 6th. Oh no, that might have been the defensive court. No, that might have been the last guy. I believe Milas was hired around February 6th, if I remember correctly. I'm
trying to remember, but
I was writing it down recently, so I was just trying to remember. Like, I don't remember the date that Liam Cohen was hired, but it was close to this time frame, basically.
Shouts to friend of the show, Mike Clinton throwing in a Duval, of course. Reyes in the comments.
January 24th.
There you go.
When the Jaguars agreed to terms last year.
Reyes in the comments, does GU ask for more responsibility this year, like calling some plays? We addressed this. Still have PTSD from giving press the play calling. Bro, listen. He'll be involved. I'm going to boldly say I don't think Grant is calling plays yet. Maybe he will.
I will boldly say that we would never know if he did.
Facts. But I'm going to think it's going to be one of those things when they announce it, you'll know what happened. Like kind of some of these things were in preseason games. Oh yeah, why let's so call the two plays during this game. You know, that kind of thing, right?
Right. It'll be like after a game, you'll be like, and just so you know, Grant actually called the last. Grant actually called that last drive. Yeah, we won. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fine. Y'all can calm down. Oh man.
And Reyes is very careful to mention, and I want to do the same. Want to be clear, I don't think Grant Udinski is anything like Press Taylor. No, we don't either. No, we don't.
We don't know. Everything
we don't know.
Like everyone raves about him. Everyone has even remotely been in association with Grant Udinski raves about just how much he is like in the lab, akin to Liam Cohen, akin to those Ben Johnson types, akin to maybe even those Mike McDaniel types. I'm not saying he's Mike McDaniel. I'm just saying one of those guys who was truly an offensive genius or a guru, that breed of guy. That's how they always refer to him. So I got to believe that that's who he is. And, he just hasn't had the opportunity yet.
And real quick, Liam says something I think that's important for the Duval devout to acknowledge. No more clown emoji. Huge point.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we are not the Cleveland. So congratulations, Duval, that you are not that. But I mean, you mentioned you mentioned the O line, and I thought this was a great grab bag question from Shoe at Swamp. I think it was Swamp Soup, saying that we struggled on third and second, and we struggled to run on third and short and throwing the ball deep in 2025. Is this a screaming sign to upgrade right guard or elsewhere on the O line? Picturing Gray Zabel last year to the Seahawks, etc.
First of all, Swamp, let me tell you, or Shoe, whatever we want to go by. First of all, I would remind the Duval devout and you Duval divers out there who was calling for Gray Zabel hard in all the mock drafts. He has two thumbs and really good hair, and Travis is wearing a hat, so you can't see his. So it has to be me. Okay.
Yeah, I was also calling for him, but maybe not as hard as you were. Like you were on board.
Granted, not as hard as you were calling for Jared Verse, but that's a separate conversation. I know.
Yeah, but now that the Jaguars have actually hired a run game coordinator, it's another piece to that offensive line conversation. I mean, check out the Jacksonville Jaguars 2026 coaching staff tracker on BigCatCountry.com. We got you covered.
Shameless plug for the win, baby. I love it.
We had you covered when it was just a rumor. Now it's official. As of today, the team actually announced it. But Brian Picucci. I'm gonna say Picucci. And former Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive line coach. He's joining the Jaguars as our run game coordinator in 2026. And that's 1 year after the Jaguars were blocked from interviewing him last year. Again, they hating asses. Did not allow Jaguars to interview him because they were trying to be petty, and that's what God don't like ugly. And now all of a sudden that whole staff then crumbled and everything else, and now they allowed the Jaguars to interview him now because they hired Zach Robinson. Tampa Bay Buccaneers hired Zach Robinson, and he's going to bring in his own guys in Tampa Bay. So that allowed Jacksonville to now be able to have Brian on staff this coming season as the run game coordinator. And if something were to change in the future, maybe that's another guy who can then be promoted next year. That's kind of what I was talking about, those succession plans. Brian worked with Cohen in Tampa. He worked with him at the University of Kentucky, and he even coached Liam while they were at the University of Massachusetts. So, it's obviously a great hire, and it's one of his guys who's now going to be in the fold in Jacksonville.
And I would add this, right? You took the question. The element I would think that is more important even than guard, because I think Wyatt Milam is going to develop, if Patrick McCarry stays around and stays healthy, that's an interesting thing to watch. I think he got a bad rap with that as injured as he was. But folks,
he was injured.
Yeah. Folks, the thing we got to watch very closely is Cole Van Landen. He comes back, stays healthy. We already know he's capable of taking Walker Little out of a job. That left tackle spot, to me, I'm not going to call it in flux, but you're going to tell me a top-level guy falls to the Jags outside of the first round, they're not going to take a shot at left tackle? That's hard.
You're saying that Cole Van Landen might be good enough to be your guy, but he's not good enough to stop you from bringing in another guy to push the whole offensive line and just be better.
It's not even just that, though. Let me remind you of something else that you were reminding me of constantly, Travis D. Holmes, personal champion. This group loves creating competition. You think Cole Van Landen is good enough to be a de facto starter? Bull bleep. They're going to bring in somebody to challenge him if they can.
If they have a guy who's able to tackle and guard, and you can put him in at guard early on just to get him acclimated to the conversation, the communication across the O-line, and then he eventually pushes out to being your left tackle as you see whatever you have, best five on the field, and do the same thing that they did last year that folks got pissed off the whole offseason about. And y'all forgot that happened. I ain't gonna let y'all forget. No, y'all was wild in these streets. Everybody was mad because they allowed these guys to play all 4 positions, 5 positions, whatever it is. And now folks are happy about it.
I'm just throwing it out.
They may do the same thing again next year, and you might need to be okay with that. Just walking into the conversation knowing that could happen. We just want the best 5.
Let's give the Duval devout a little credit. Maybe they've achieved enough cred with this fan base that they're okay with them doing that, Travis.
they'll be fine with them doing all the things and just being like, "Hey, man, we trust them. We'll see what happens." And
there you go. There you go. Now
you think fans are that rational? I don't know.
Here's what I'm gonna say. They're gonna say what they say. It'll just be less loud this time, potentially. I won't rule anything out. I'll put it that way. Fans are fans.
But I would love a mid-round guy. Like, and there's a lot of mid-round guys being talked about. Like the recent one from the Senior Bowl is Caden
other than Cole Van Lannon. Okay, cool.
Well, I'm talking about like at guard, like if he because Shaw specifically mentioned someone like a Graves Abel, someone like at right guard. Then I'm looking at like the Senior Bowl. That's the talk right now is Caden Barnett, the Wyoming guard, because his big thing was that he has the size, he has the length, he just hadn't had the experience against like top, like he has the traits. He just had minimal opportunities against the top competition. So like a guy like that, if you can get him in the middle rounds where the Jacksonville Jaguars have multiple picks, then you're kind of talking a good day 3 road grader. I'm gonna be okay with that if you can establish this run game and kind of get this thing moving in that way.
Yeah, I'm not going to put it in. And you're going a lot to the run game, and I think that's really where the guard position is more important, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And the reason why, and for those out there who notice, I hear you, whether you actually say it or not there, Duval Divers, but why is Kyle shying from the guard spot? I really don't think we have enough data yet, personally, right?
Because we're depending on development with the other guys. We're depending on development between Wyatt Milam and maybe even Jonah Monheim and whatever. With those guys.
And the guy who was supposed to be the guy was hurt for most of the time.
Much of the season, even early in the season. Yeah,
Correct.
He was hurt. So we don't know what Patrick McCarry truly looks like. Just, purely healthy Patrick McCarry.
But I'll add to your point in that same place. If there's a mid-round guy that this group likes that can challenge, act like they don't draft him. Come on, folks.
Raise that floor, and let them fight
Learn
it out.
Something from what you've seen. Use your bleeding eyes, Duval out. Come on, that's all I'm saying.
That's what it is. It's Joker. It's Joker from the Dark Knight in the room with a knife, telling y'all, "Hey man, I got a spot open on my roster. Y'all can fight it out and figure it out." Like that's it.
What a drop. Dark Knight. Let's go. Dark Knight, the Dark Knight. That's the movie. Anyways,
no, and we had another question I thought was a dope one, like from Rocket on, and I believe this was Discord. On X.
Is it?
But
X?
It could have been Discord. It could have been Discord. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure. Asking what can we expect as far as any changes to the staff, which I thought was just interesting because it's happened right before the recent announcements. Seems likely the coordinators might be back for 2026. You are correct, Rocket. They are. Mm-hmm. But seems like they've been making changes to the smaller role coaching staff jobs, like any more changes you could expect to see. And that's fun because like you still have the guys like we talked about all the different Tampa connections like with Pakushi, but you gotta believe that the former Buccaneers offensive coordinator Josh Grizzard, if he wanted a job with the Jaguars or if he didn't get one of those offensive coordinator jobs, because I believe he was only associated so far with the interview with the Eagles, he would absolutely have a role in Jacksonville in some form or fashion. He spent 4 years Oh gosh.
But he says he's a Broncos fan. I would invite you, Jarchako, to hang out a bit. We have a question specifically designed for you. I'll tell you that.
Yes.
Later on tonight. But hang in there, and thank you for coming in. We will take fans of a different fan base. Hell, we had Bills fans taunting us at one point. It's all good. We had fun with it.
Jerks. Yeah. No. But no. So Josh Grizzard, like I know he's the former offensive coordinator for the Bucs, and obviously, the Jaguars now already have a run game coordinator. They already have a pass game coordinator on defense, and they already have Shane Waldron as the passing game coordinator. But like I said earlier, succession plans. There is no limitation on how many offensive roles and sub specialists you can have in coaching. And there's no salary cap on coaches. If you have a guy you want to have in the room for diversity of thought, you make a role for him. Like, what is it? Jed Fish under Sean McVay Jed Fish under Bill Belichick, actually, I believe that's what it was co-offensive coordinator or something like that. It was like it was some weird. It's a weird role that I didn't even know existed. Like they made it. It was obvious that they made it up. And I was just like, Lord, you can do whatever you want to do if you want a guy on staff. You just simply need to make a role and just say, all right, cool. He's going to be your passing game coordinator, or he's going to be your pass game specialist, or he's going to be your pass game assistant. These are actually technically different roles.
Whatever.
Right. They're all different roles. I just need this guy with diversity of thought in the room, and hopefully he can make the role easier for everyone else on the staff. And I believe that if he doesn't get one of those offensive coordinator roles for one of these other teams, I think someone like Grizzard is going to be in Jacksonville in some shape, form, or fashion if he doesn't follow Frank Smith, who could also get the Eagles offensive coordinator job. That's the only difference. That's the one key difference.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of there. You have a lot more insight on that portion of it. I think you touched on it, a lot of it already. I'm going to go to a place that when this dude drops a bomb, I feel compelled to let him know because we're frenemies. My dude, Timmy Devil, came in with something big. No one on the O-line is so highly paid that they can't be replaced. However, I need 4, I think that's defensive linemen. Yeah, okay. We can't go into another season with Dickerson and Johnson and Smith. Smith looks like he's gone. Mason is gone because he needs to be at this point, is what I would say, according to the staff or the tea leaves I read. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I just don't know if he's a fit. I'm gonna say that.
Well, the floor is at minimum set. Like to his point, like he says, he doesn't need as much Dickerson and I forget the other name he named. But
Johnson,
Dickerson and Johnson. But that at minimum, your floor is set. So whether you bring in one, free agent defensive tackle, which is where I believe the Jaguars would end up going. I mean, we will get into the details of that, but again, I think their big fish or their big signing would be in free agency at defensive tackle. And then I still don't think that they'd necessarily be done because they can still draft a guy at defensive tackle, whether that's a run stopper or a guy who can shoot the gaps on the 3 technique. We'll see. But I do believe the Jaguars could realistically bring in just 2 guys between free agency and the draft. And then you start talking additional undrafted free agent guys, because again, we weren't thinking about Matt Dickerson in the offseason. We weren't like, so the fact is you can still find those other late guys in the draft or those other, undrafted free agent guys to continue raising that floor. And it'll still be better than it was in 2024. And you'd be happy if you have a free agent guy also there. And then your depth is solid. Like, I think it's a solid overall plan.
And I love the point you're making here, too. You see those guys out there. You assume that those coaches love putting them out there. Let me introduce a concept to you. Maybe they're the best that they had at the time. So with the opportunity to upgrade, I don't have to finish that sentence. You know where I'm going. So when
the opportunity is there to upgrade, man, F them picks. You know it. That's it.
I F them picks is super great. I listen, you leaned in with a James Gladstone quote. I'm going to meet you with this one.
Hey, one of the trademarks of our leadership group is that when there's an opportunity to be bold, we won't flinch.
With those 2 things combined,
we got to talk about that Friday, because there's another question that was in the grab bag that you just reminded me about, and I'm excited to talk about. But I'm not even going to spoil it. I'm not even going to spoil it. But that comment just reminded me about it, and I'm like, dang, we got to get.
I'm going to call an audible on you here. I'm going to pull out what would have been our last topic and pull it now, since we have a Denver fan in the building, and I think this speaks to him here. A new fan in Jar Chaco comes in the room. We'll hope to keep you in the room with a word from one of our biggest fans here on the Duval Dive, Radius. Radius Johansson comes in from Blue Sky. This feels like a moot point now. So by way of a replacement, do you think bad weather games add a chaotic element of fun to the season, or do you think it ruins spectacle? Would you favor more dome games, or do you like the added variability provided by the weather? Travis, I'm going to go to you first.
Man, I enjoy this one. And shout out Radius. I know he's asleep right now over in the UK, but
he's going to love hearing it on the podcast, which you can check out on Spotify and all your podcatchers.
That's it. In the regular season, I actually prefer the variability. I actually think most NFL conferences, most NFL teams are built around the division that they're in, and most of the divisions are all regional. So what one team is dealing with weather-wise, most teams are dealing with. So you're building this thing to make the playoffs, to beat up on your division, to beat up on your region. So I think I'm in general agreement. As long as one team is dealing with this, the rest of y'all dealing with this, it's cool. It's all level. It sucks when it's one team that has a dome and the rest of them are outside, and then it's like that whole piece. And I hate it for the playoffs. And to the Denver fan that's in the chat, I'm sorry, bro. Like, that's where it sucks when you have a game that's in the snow and one team is obviously better passing the ball than the other team, but the other team is better at running the ball. But now it's a snow game, so that passing attack is already going to be muted, and that team is now going to be a little bit more deficient in this game, and it makes the competitive advantage unbalanced. But that's the good part of the NFL, though, is the best team don't always win. This ain't a series. This ain't like the MLB. This ain't like the this ain't like the the NBA, where it's just a best of series where the best team would generally win more often than not. This is, hey man, on this Sunday when you had a hurricane weather or you had snowy blizzard, what were you the best team on the field? And that sucks sometimes, but it also makes this thing a wild thing to watch and be a fan of, because the best team don't always win because of circumstances.
So here's a couple things too I would bring to the fold. First of all, let me show my credentials again as an offensive lineman. If you think I'm in a position to dislike bad, but rather you're wrong. Even in the contact flag league that the champion here, Travis D. Holmes, played with me, the reason why I call him champion is because I won a championship with him as a teammate. He will tell you that there are rain games where my team dominated running because I made sure we could run the damn ball personally. That's a separate conversation. I'm just telling you my biases as an offensive lineman. Here's what I'm getting to, Travis. We learned this past weekend. I'm sorry, Jar Chaco. I'm going to say something to offend your coach. We learned this past weekend who built their legacy in outside stadiums and who built their legacy in a dome. I had family, or more correctly, my mom had family friends from Appleton, Wisconsin in town who drove down from there. And they delayed their trip from here, Orlando, Florida, back north because there was national news of snow and blizzard coming. One team prepared, the other didn't. It just so happened to ironically be the road team who, had they hosted, had even worse conditions. So that's the only reason we're actually having this conversation, in my opinion. It's not the only reason. The other reason was, and I think this leads to Travis's point, the absolute whiteout on TV that you couldn't see a damn thing in the actual broadcast itself. Jim Nantz, a guy veteran for years broadcasting football, throwing his hands in the air. I can't see where the ball is. Okay. That's all the things we're talking about with this. You don't take that away, because what this weather actually does is show teams that can win more than one way. And that's what I want my champion to be. But Duval, how dare you come at me trying to tell me you hate snow games, where all of you know for a bleeding fact in the early season, you love having New England or northern teams here in town in the blazing heat. You too have advantage. Granted, it's not bad weather. They don't use that phrase, but it's awesome heat weather that's supposed to give you the advantage. You can't have that ish both ways. That's all.
But no, I don't know about that one, bro. Like, come on, the heat is different. It can make guys wilt. Don't get me wrong, but used to it, quote unquote, is a different thing. Because I don't know that necessarily Florida people are, quote, used to it, if that makes sense. Like, it is still different. This heat that we getting recently, like, it's like, nah, man, when you get it, it's rough for everybody. And that's where I'm like, it's not the same competitive advantage as a snow game.
And water bottles are freezing when you take them out of the fridge. I get it. It also does impact everybody, but I'm just saying it is a different type of competitive advantage overall. Correct. That's kind of what I'm hinting at. And again, I played up in Michigan. I played both in Florida, UCF, and at Northern Michigan. You're uniquely qualified. Correct.
I can talk about both times, and I'm saying this is different. And I think I was reasonably used to both, but one of them is much more of a significant competitive advantage, and it just mutes the other one's ability to throw the ball. Then you're probably going to win if you're a more dominant team that was built for this.
Well, hold on. So you're talking about throwing the ball. That's where you got it all wrong. If you got me and you're knocking MFers out the way, you going where the MFers ain't at, to quote our dude.
Yeah. The team from up north in the snow, they're gonna be built for all that though. The team from down south might be a little faster, like your Miami Dolphins or whatever else, and they might be able to run the ball reasonably. And they may just have guys who aren't used to it. Like you aren't used to the snow, aren't used to that cold in that way. And you're going to have to figure that out on the fly. And that was actually a concern of mine. I said that early on when I wanted the Jaguars to have the number 1 seed, because I said, I don't want to get up to New England or Denver or wherever, and there's a snowstorm. And that's when I find out exactly what I have on this roster as far as the guys who are used to playing in the snow, because that's a weird time to figure that out. And you won't know unless you're there for the whole week practicing. And that's just one more thing to kind of have to be a champion of or get over on.
Well, and the comments so far seem to favor you. The dome team should have secured home field advantage throughout. If they don't, that's on them. Oh wait, he's siding with me. Hey, if you're a dome team,
I'm siding with him. Yeah.
No. But he's agreeing with me actually. If you're a dome team, earn the home field advantage so you ain't got to worry about it.
We ain't disagreeing, but but they ask, I'm actually in agreement with you from a philosophical point of view. But all I'm saying is, at the end of the day, what I prefer the purest form of football for me to see who's the best team in the way that you built yourself versus the way that they built themselves on a neutral field with neutral weather. Which team is the best? I would prefer the best team to win every game. I know that's not how it works, and I think that's why this game is so fascinating. But I'm only saying, if someone asks me, that's what I prefer to see.
And the use of the term best is questioning, because you say best, meaning they're at their peak, they're at their highest, they're doing what they do best.
Most consistent.
I implied teams that can win multiple ways are the best, which weather forces you to do. This is what makes that interesting.
Milk. We'll go with that. I don't.
There's no wrong answer, is what we're saying. Then Timmy Devil comes out here with a milk toast boring take. All teams should have a dome. Shouts to you, Timmy. I had to talk some trash.
All teams should have a dome. Who are you? No. Timmy Devils has some great takes on occasion, and he has some terrible ones. All teams should have a dome. No. If all teams have a dome, this is crazy. This is not basketball.
Wow. I didn't take it that far, Timmy. Damn. Okay. Anyway, let's get this last order of business out here. And I know a lot of people have been talking about it. Heck, I even mentioned it. And to be honest, my personal champion leading up to the start of the show educated me even a little bit. But we'll get right to it. Aaron Mirov here on Twitter. The AC's Pro Bowl QBs were Drake May, Josh Allen, and Justin Herbert. May is going to the Super Bowl. The other two are banged up. We'll see if they stay. But Bo Nix got injured. Patrick LaVon Mahomes II got injured. Danny Dimes got injured, which I don't know how he's being considered, but cool. That's how it trickles down to Shedeur Sanders. Now,
for the Pro Bowl.
For the Pro Bowl, correct. Thank you for that addition. Now, I know I've asked the question out loud. Respect ain't coming. I see. I made it a statement, but it's a question phrased in the form of Liam Cohen saying, when's the respect coming? Respect ain't coming. But then Travis provided this graphic showing us the quarterbacks available versus not.
Right.
And it's a fascinating thing. For those in the audio world, we mentioned Josh Allen, Patrick LaVon Mahomes II, Bo Nix, Justin Herbert, also recovering in his own way from injury. Indiana Jones the same. Cam Ward was injured in his final game. Drake May, much to the chagrin of any actual football fan, is in the Super Bowl, which makes no bleeding sense to me. Anyways, here's the part I didn't know. Lamar Demetrius Jackson declined. CJ Stroud considered, really, but declined. Joe Burrow is still recovering from injury, and Aaron Rodgers is too old, I guess. I don't know. But Trevor Lawrence also declined. I don't know that I knew about that. Travis.
Well, yeah, a few people actually confirmed that Trevor Lawrence declined, and I thought it was weird that a while that everybody was still kind of raving about it on the socials. Like, Shedeur Sanders got picked over Trevor Lawrence? No, of course he didn't. And anybody with a brain would obviously assume, no, he obviously declined. We just waiting for the official confirmation. And you've now probably seen it by the time this podcast is aired. I know News4Jax already reported it in one of their articles.
Jamal St. Cyr, by the way.
Jamal St. Cyr and co. Like, they already reported it. Like, but I talked to multiple guys the day of, and I'm like, this don't sound right. Can you confirm this for me? And I'm like, no, he declined because don't freak out when you hear news too much, folks. Just
isn't he expecting another baby? I mean, that's as good as excuse as any, in my opinion.
Oh, is he? Maybe I missed that news. If that's happening, then dope. Okay, man, get your business in. I understand it.
Pause. So
no pause at all. No, get to work. Get your off-season.
pause free. Here we go. Perfect. So wow, we went from coaching to weather to pause. That's a great way to put it, man. Listen, that's fine. Listen,
so I didn't see any other crazy questions. Again, I got a few questions in my head already from this mailbag because you guys continue destroying us. We have folders of questions.
I've never enjoyed being destroyed so much in my life. No pause. Don't do it, Travis.
No, that's pause. That's absolutely pause. Jesus. Yes.
Travis will not let me slide.
It's so many questions, and we are going to get to them this off season. We're going to get to a lot of them on Friday's podcast. Maybe we'll get something for you guys on this upcoming Monday as we enter this off season. It's all about what you guys want to talk about. So continue hitting us up on the Duval Dive on YouTube. Continue hitting us up on TikTok on the Duval Dive or Duval Dive on X. Travis D. Holmes on Twitter, on Blue Sky, in IG, whatever, man. Get the questions to us, Discord, Reddit, all the places, and we will get them on the podcast as long as they are reasonable and like, don't be wild in these streets. I mean, you can be a little wild because we are, but yeah, don't be too wild. Still a family-oriented show. You know how I get down. But Travis D. Holmes on all the socials.
Even though we say pause, it's still a family show. That's right.
Yeah, Travis D. Holmes on all the socials. Find my writing on bigcatcountry.com covering the Jaguars. We have all your updates on the coaching search. We have all our updates on any additional additions, maybe some additional position coaches. Maybe they'll have a co-offensive coordinator or a co-passing game coordinator or an assistant to the head coach or whatever made-up position they can get great talent on the coaching staff. We will have you covered at bigcatcountry.com. And in the meantime, keep commenting on the stream. Please like if you're listening to the sound of my voice. This stream will rate and review us.
Travis, I have to bring this up. We are so close to 1,000 subs, folks. Get us over the line.
This close. Yes, Lord. Yes. So please click that subscribe button if you're listening to us. We know about 65% of you listening to this podcast have clicked that subscribe button. And if you haven't, we understand life comes at you fast, bro. But help us out. This is off season. We're here for you. We're here to talk with you, and not unlike every other podcast. We're not talking at you. We are talking with you. You see how many responses we've responded to. You see how much we talk in the
even Broncos fans got dap on this pod, for goodness sake, Travis.
That's what it is. I'm being very clear about this. We are not talking at you. We are talking with you. So talk back and keep this conversation going in this off season, and we're going to continue discussing this Jacksonville Jaguars team and how to make this thing incredible. It's already great. Now we can try to see how we can make it the greatest and, win a few more games in the playoffs. But let them know where you can be found, sir.
It's funny how our goals unite with Liam Cohen's. I appreciate that, Travis. Of course, I'm Kyle Nass, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the student of the game. Check out my writings with the Black and Gold Banneret and the Night Shift podcast covering the UCF Knights here, football and basketball, as well as my work covering the Orlando Magic. I ran into actually 1010XL's RJ Saunders this past weekend, checking that out. So there you go. Check out the Open Gym podcast, by the way, if you happen to be a Magic fan. Get some crossover when you're not listening to Travis D. Holmes appear on Hacker's show there after dark. That's a fun time all the way around. So for all you Duval divers dropping divivers, I mixed up divine and divers. That's pretty nice. Anyways, for all you in the comments dropping absolute dimes, more so than Indiana Jones, thank you for that. For my personal champion, Travis D. Holmes, is Kyle Nash, student game. Until next time, everyone, class dismissed.